Good Sunday morning. It's Meteorologist Ryan Hoke with today's Hokey video blog. So happy you could join us here. And I'm quite blurry. Hey, there we go. The camera had to get in focus there. All right, as we go throughout today, we are talking about hot temperatures, high humidity, and when you combine those two, yeah, you can get thunderstorms this time of year, especially when you've got a cold front knocking on your door, much like we do today. We got to talk about these storm chances because some of these could be strong to severe. So let's get right to it with today's Hokey weather fact. It's humid today, but not as humid as it is in the Midwest at times. We're talking about the Corn Belt, portions of Iowa and Minnesota, even portions of South Dakota as well. I went storm chasing out there a few years ago. You get out of the vehicle and holy smokes, it is way more humid there than it is here a lot of the time because of the evapotranspiration of corn. We're talking about dew points that get into the 80s, the lower 80s. We've only had that here a few times over the past few decades. One of them was fairly recently, about 2-3 years ago. But it's interesting because this can sometimes rival what they get down in the deep south and on the Gulf Coast. That's pretty humid air, and it's all because of cornfields. Pretty cool, isn't it? Outside this morning on our SkyTrack network of cameras, you see it there from Starlight, Indiana, at Huber's Orchard and Winery. We've got some clouds out there, not a whole ton of sunshine. A lot of folks are seeing some of those pseudo-overcast skies, but I do think we'll begin to clear out somewhat as we head toward the Tracker 3D radar. We're not tracking any sort of shower activity here locally across our 29 counties, but look off to the northwest, and that's where we had a line of thunderstorms earlier this morning, and look how quickly it faded out. Boom, it is gone. Pretty much outrun the forcing that kept it together, and once we got the sun up, the nocturnal low-level jet also ceased as well. So these storms, well, they're not even really storms now, just a line of showers. Probably not even going to make it to the I-70 corridor before they peter out completely. But something to know is that I think some of the outflow from this is going to be trekking southward as we head throughout the late morning, the early afternoon. That could provide a focus for some storms to form just north of our counties as we go throughout the early afternoon. Certainly something that we are watching. The wide view on the regional scale here shows you that we've got quite a bit of cloud cover still streaming into Kentuckiana. And at this point, I think that's going to delay the development of some of these storms this afternoon by an hour or two. The latest data coming in has done that, and that makes sense given all the cloud cover that we have. Sometimes the models aren't that great at resolving cloud cover, and that's why we always tell you that for the best forecast for severe weather, you always have to wait till the morning of the actual event. That's when you can gauge where the cloud cover is, where the previous evening storms have set up, where they have left outflow boundaries. And today, that's certainly going to be the case. We've got the cloud cover now, but I think we'll start to see some of these breaks in here later on as we head throughout the day. There's a cold front sitting about right there, by the way, and that's going to be trudging on southeastward as we head throughout the day. Unfortunately, this cold front is going to be stalling out about right here. That's not good, especially because we could have some flooding concerns, probably about 50 miles on either side of that line right there. So we'll explain that in future casts coming up because it shows it quite well what I think the setup may be as we go throughout the next 24 hours. Let's talk about right now. We've got 80 degrees in Louisville at 8:30 in the morning when I'm recording this. My goodness. And we hit 80 degrees, earlier on in the morning too, say 5 o'clock or so. So it's been a warm morning, 70s in the outlying areas. Look at these dew points. Holy smokes, folks. We're talking about lower 70s in a lot of locations. You're noticing where the southwesterly wind is bringing in the moisture because you don't have quite as high a dew point over eastern part of our viewing area, the eastern parts there. The rest of our viewing area very close to 70 or over it. So as we continue to go through the day, more of this is going to be coming in. Notice the 72 degrees for the dew point in Madisonville, in Owensboro. All that air is going to advect or move into our neck of the woods. Let's talk about the dew point for a second, because as you get up towards 70 degrees, that's when things become oppressive. That's going to be the sensible feature of our weather as we go throughout the late morning, the early afternoon. We've already hit the uncomfortable stage, and now we are trekking well toward oppressive at this time. Here's Futurecast. Now, this is new data. Earlier this morning, it was trying to put a line of storms based on the outflow boundary of what we had up there in Indiana around here about noontime. It didn't make sense, and the other models weren't showing it just because those storms were still hung up in Indiana, and they probably wouldn't put out an outflow boundary that far south. at around noon. It would say be, I don't know, after 2, 3 o'clock. And look at this, new data coming in. That makes more sense to me now. 3:30, we've got storms developing just around, I would say, Columbus, Indiana or so, trekking southward into Lawrence, Jackson, Jennings counties. And then as we head throughout the evening, they become more widespread as the clouds continue to clear out to the south. So more of this moist air and more of this instability will be able to pump into these as we go throughout that time frame. We're already at 90 degrees by 7:30, and that'll be actually after we get up to 93 this afternoon. So with the storms coming in a little later, that's why I've upped us there to around 93. Otherwise, we'd have to decrease that high temperature today. So we've got the storms widespread around 7:30. Some of these could have damaging winds, maybe some wind gusts as well. You see the update there at 7:30. And then as we go throughout 11:30, things might quiet down slightly. We lose the heating of the day, so we're going to still have storms at this time. Don't get me wrong, but the coverage may decrease as we lose the sunshine there. But the problem is the cold front driving all of this is going to be sinking southward at a very slow rate by this time. And in fact, so slow that it's going to get hung up about right there in this area. And look what happens between 11 and 2:30. The storms are starting to train over the same area. They're going to be right along this front where you've got the area of lift, and these are going to be putting down some heavy rain. With dew points like this, I mean, you can put down some very, very heavy rain. So this is a big problem because even as we still go into early Monday morning, by 6:30, some of the same areas are getting rained on by this relentless fire hose, if you will, of rain and storms. That's why I think flash flooding could be the big takeaway from this event. It might not be the gusty winds, even though that is certainly possible. We could end up with well more flash flood warnings than severe thunderstorm warnings. It just depends on how things work out. I think initially this will be a severe thunderstorm warning risk, especially for this area right here, around and north of the river. Then as you go south of Louisville, this is where I think the flash flooding risk will be maximized. So we're looking at severe up here, and then the flooding down in this area down here. So, just so you know, if you live in one of these two areas, this is what you're going to have to deal with, I think, as we go throughout the night. So we're under a severe weather risk today, a slight risk of severe weather, and that's going to be for just about all of us, save for the southern portions of Hart, Greene, Taylor County, down toward Adair County, just because you folks will be getting it later tonight, and that puts you into tomorrow's risk. So damaging winds, small hail, the heavy rain, that's going to be a big deal. The tornado threat, I've been looking at this for the last couple of days, trying to resolve if we're going to have this tornado threat or not. I don't think we will. At this point, I think it's so low that it's not even worth mentioning. There might be a spin up or two along this line, but really, given the fact that the winds at the surface are going to be out of the southwest and the winds aloft are going to be sort of out of the west here, that's not a whole lot of directional shear. But you will have more wind aloft than you will have at the surface. So that's some speed shear. That's going to help our gusty wind threat along this afternoon and this evening. Notice by tomorrow, this is mainly for the morning stuff. It's south of Louisville where we have the slight risk. But there is a chance if this stuff clears out, the morning line of storms down there clears out fast enough before the front moves through, we could have an additional line of storms begin to develop, maybe somewhere near Louisville on southward, and try to move through with some damaging wind gusts. The jury's still out on that. We have to decide in the morning if it's going to do that or not based on the timing of how this all works out. So let's go through this kind of in a list form here. This afternoon, pop-up storms, some of these strong with gusty winds. This evening, that's when we could see the potential for scattered strong severe storms. We could have some damaging wind gusts. The flooding, I think that's when the flooding really becomes put into play here is this evening into the overnight. Once the morning storms push out, then we'll have to watch for some of these afternoon ones. But it will be calmer as we go into late Monday evening. As evidenced here on Futurecast, by 1 o'clock, there's some of those storms that try to get going in the afternoon. We'll see about that at this point. And then as we go throughout the evening, may see an additional line of showers try to come through with the cold front that'll be moving through. And then after that, clear skies, cooler weather. Look at this. Yeah, the cool air comes in. It'll be around for a few days as we go throughout that time frame. So let's recap for today. We're going to have the heat, the humidity, and certainly the potential for some strong to severe storms this afternoon, this evening, into Monday morning as well. Of course, Brian Good will be in here with you tonight. Christy Dutton will be in tomorrow morning. We'll get you through this because at the end of this, yes, some very nice weather. I know folks need the water for plants and crops and things like that, so we've got a pretty good chance of that at least. We need to clear out that dry ground that we've had over the past several weeks. All right, for now, I'm meteorologist Ryan Hoke. Enjoy your Sunday and download the Wave 3 News weather app to keep track of the storms this afternoon and this evening.